Hello, world. Tonight's featured readers are Carolyn Adams and Trina Gaynon. Trina Gaynon leads a group of poetry readers and a writing salon at the Senior Studies Institute in Portland. Her publishing credits include a number of anthologies, among them The Grace of Oregon Rain and A Ritual to Read Together, Poems in Conversation with William Stafford. Her chapbook, An Alphabet of Romance, was published in 2013 by Finishing Line Press. Her book, Quince, Rose, Grace of God, was published in 2024 by Fernwood Press. And then Carolyn Adams' art and writing have appeared in Caveat Lector, Bryant Literary Review, and Comstock Review, among others. Nominated multiple times for Pushcart and Best the Net. Her full-length collection, Going Out Together, has been published by Fernwood Press. She has and publishes the Oregon Poetry Calendar. So Trina's going to go first, and we'll go from there.
So part of the reason that Carolyn and I are here together is because Fernwood Press published our books within months of each other. And so we've walked the track together. Spring Incantation. Learn the names of all you love. Quince, Rose, Grace of God. Chant them as you walk city streets. Aspen, Iris, Monterey Pine. Call them by name. Hush their voices. Crowing Rooster, German Shepherd, Stephanie, Kimberly, who live at the top of their lungs. Beneath the sound of the wind and old aspen branches, repeat the names you know. Blackberry, Sunshine, Chickadee. Pray that these two wage battle against angry voices. Seagull, Orange Blossom, Morning Glory. Seek the names of those you do not know, that you may come to love them. Spider flower, leopard's bane, boys who give each other bloody noses in the playground. So I wrote these poems when I was a single woman able to buy a home of my own. I had a career and I had saved a lot of money. And I finally looked up from my books and looked at people. So a number of the poems that I will be reading tonight are about those encounters in watching people. Sweet Contamination. Before she clasps the silver support of the bus, she takes a tissue in her gloved hands to keep the white cotton clean. She leans over to whisper secrets in the cave of the ear of her daughter, a teenager with her face shadowed by unruly hair. Once, I wanted to go through the world this way, never touching it, whispering. But I came to love cool, still poles and the echoes my voice makes when it strikes the window on the other side. The mother frowns at men who cast their eyes on her daughter, shelters the seated girl with her body. I surrendered such shelter, meant to keep me beyond the reach of men's hunger. For I came to love their groaned responses to a glimpse of flesh. I came to love the inescapable scent every mother must know her daughter hides. Submerged. The third time, to reach her, it hid in waves and rip currents, then went for her husband, washed him off a rock as he fished Morro Bay. In front of the sons, he left standing on the hard stone beach, while she watched from a kitchen window, up to her elbows in dishwater. She called the Coast Guard. She held the boys in her arms. Relieved that it was finished with her, she thought that after such a loss, there was nothing left to fear, until she identified the body. In a room where no one but the coroner to hold her up when the dark closed in. The first time it nearly took her was at 12, when she ran off into the deep end of the pool chasing a tennis ball. After the shock of the splash, the water closed softly around her body and over her head. She was blue with the weight of still water and lack of air, beating her arms against the lid, closing in over her until her cousin pulled her out. It tried again when her husband coaxed her to lower her body into a man-made lake. Exchanging air bubbles for water-filled lungs, she fought to grab the side of the boat and pull her weight out of the green murk, on realizing that only 100-year-old trees could rise through mud and the fish to branch in sunlight and still touch the silty bottom. After that, she never opened her eyes underwater, afraid to see it waiting, believing it lurked there just for her. She kept her head up, never took the children beyond where she could plant her feet on the cool tile at the bottom of the pool. Once she had buried her husband. She excised fishing poles from the house, kept her younger son off of surfboards, and refused to watch sunsets at Carmel when the older boy bought a beach house, becoming its ally. She refused to travel coast roads. She shrank further and further into the city, tunneling from home to work by subway. So when God called, she wouldn't answer. It left her alone for years. And she believed either God had a hand in the drowning or there was no God. She'd been in church every Sunday beside her husband and lived without God all that time. Why did he call her name now? Talking baptism, telling her it was time to immerse herself, to open her eyes underwater and live. I'm going to do a quick time check. Besides, you need to come up after that, right? So you will find, if you read the book, that the ocean is often a perilous place to be close to. Some stars are not used for navigation. On the bay, the waters stir as the sun goes down, and stones along the shore are beaten by the tide, as the pine windbreak is beaten by the rising winds. And the sailors who fish to the world's edge all day surrender their boats to the dusk waves, as gulls surrender their wings to the dusk sky. He waits for still waters and a star-marked sky, lingers over beer and sandwiches, the sails down. The fear of his own freedom out here hits him in waves. There are enough hard-boiled detective books below to tide him over until the endless mirror of the open ocean can edge him into madness, where portholes are windows and hatches are doors, and the endless sea winds like a lawn around the boat out to meet the sky. And it offers him a cool place to lie on the edge of death until he tires of swimming and slips down to become bloated flotsam on a rising tide, to discover a lighter gravity riding the waves. A last fishing trawler motors by. Sailors wave at him, their yellow slickers pulled tight against wind and spray as their prow bounces on the tide. They are mostly shadow and light against a sky, no longer pink with the glow of a small smog-filtered sundown. With the trawler, night has come over the world's edge. He finishes his after-dinner pipe, moves back from the edge, packs away fear and freedom as waves become quiet and the wind settles down. He decides it's time to head home and rewinds the ropes that hold him still beneath the sky. He wants no more lonely rising and ebbing of tides that leave his mind a vortex of flood tides. From now on, he'll race on the edge of competition, sails tight against a sunny sky. A crew to stand with him before the waves, a crew to stand and shelter him from the winds, to help him haul the canvas up and down. He rides high on the tide. His motor skims the waves as ahead and to his right, the edge of the shoreline unwinds before his eyes, and stars in the sky begin to rain down. So as a writer, we frequently write about the process. You've all heard about that fickle little muse. Well, here's a poem for the muse. Downsizing. The streets are littered with middle management, cut loose from walnut desks by another reduction in force, almost as many as out-of-work poets. It's a muse's market out there, and I can have any poet I choose. Maybe even settle down with one writer for a while. Somebody offering fringe benefits, say gourmet coffee, and an appreciation of fine old forms like Sestina's. A poet hungry for company and comfortable with words, blooming calla lilies and sudden death. A poet curious about line breaks, sprays of lilac in a green glass vase, and the scent of evil on a back road. A poet persistent in seeking the perfect rhythm, an unblemished peach, and the warmth of carefully banked coals. This time, I get to choose, and I'm tired of passionate hotheads. I'm looking for a poet capable of a long, slow burn. Thank you.
And Carolyn's next.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I want to thank Mark for making a place for us to read here. This is a beautiful venue, and it's a wonderful place to share our poetry. I have two books that I'm going to be reading from, and they're both for sale and on the table back there. This first one was published in 2014. It's called The Things You've Left Behind, and I published it after my mom passed away, and I inherited some of her things, and also took possession of a big box of family photographs, only some of which I know the context of, and so I wrote poems about the ones I knew the stories behind, and then sort of made up stories for the ones I didn't know about. The first one is about my grandfather, my mom's father, and he fought in the, or had some kind of a role in the Philippine-American War in the early 20th century, because there was a photograph of him standing in a jungle with a mule, staring straight into the camera. The man in the forest. The man in the forest is my silhouette. His dark eyes, his profile, are shadows sliced from the jungle bower. In the photo, he wears a wide-brimmed hat, pulled low on a deep brow. Pants, bloused at the boot tops, receive a coarse shirt tucked loosely. A mule stands behind him, its plaintive ears parted, listening. Around the animal, the bush spills wild vines in a riot of leaves. It's okay. In a riot of leaves. The vegetation sings its snake song, its hunter's song. On one hip, his hand rests on a holstered pistol. On his chest, a leather strap betrays the machete poised on his back. And when I was a kid, my brother had endless hobbies, and I was always his beautiful assistant. And so when he took on oceanography, he and I gathered tiny sea creatures in a seine at Galveston. I'm originally from Houston. And when astronomy was his gig, I helped him grind a glass lens for his telescope, really big telescope. And lastly, when he took on photography as a hobby, I was his subject. And also I would help him develop photos in the family bathroom, which was tiny, and so we had trays of toxic chemicals balanced on the commode and then strings strung between the shower and the doorway with photos drying on them. So this one's about one of our experiments. Time lapse. Each shutter stop repeats her transformation. She steps out of herself, a living matryoshka, shedding each moment like a skin. He positions her carefully around the yard after each exposure, a step ahead of the previous one, and she's captured all at once in a meandering line headed toward the south wall of the house. She'll collide with it and fall comically, and all her selves will witness. They all agree it's rather embarrassing. But she plays along because she loves him, and she doesn't mind being part of the joke. It's worth it to watch him work so hard at such a frivolous thing. And so when my mom passed away, my brother, who had been living with her and taking care of her, gave me everything from her purse. And that was very tender. The things you've left behind. I slip into the pocket of your ghost, mingle with the small, important things there. Your wristwatch, a slender bone band. 2 rings delicate as baby fingers. Your tiny compact, embossed silver, a fairy castle picture on the front, a polished metal mirror in the lid, its smooth water still smudged with rouge. A white cotton handkerchief trimmed in blue embroidery, folded for your purse. Your plastic driver's license with a picture of you, coy in the DMV photo. And on the back, over the restriction codes, your fingerprint, its whirls and waves, a labyrinth. And the second book I'll read from is one that was published about the same time as Trina's. It was a pretty cosmic coincidence. This is called Going Out to Gather, also published by Fernwood Press. It's a collection of nature poems. And so, okay. So I will read one for each season because it's divided by the seasons. And this first one was written after a visit to the Portland Japanese garden in winter. Koi Pond. The boardwalk, a treachery of feathers ready to receive another broken bone, looms just above the surface. Step deliberately when approaching. With few exceptions, ice has claimed this part of the pond. This is where you see her, moving through what free water remains, a sluggish ghost in the shadows, slow, conserving the fragile heat she still has in this late winter. A canopy of juniper dressed with light snow overhangs, watching. Last year, a quorum of her kind was lost, turned to stone, to frigid silence. She doesn't know that story, but some instinct guides her to keep what warmth she can, to cruise in stubborn torpor. In her drift, she remembers the summer, her long, languid vowels, the accompanying texts of her companions, how they interwove manuscripts, narrations of sky, tree, sun, and moon. Warm days are a memory now, and thoughts rest lightly in her body. She has held the same posture for an hour. Her bones have reached a conclusion, an idea about hope itself, there, near the indifferent bridge, inches from the force that will take her. And I took some photos of the trilliums, which are out now, so this is spring. Trilliums. Say, I can sleep with the trilliums tonight. Say, my husband won't notice my absence and no one will come looking. Say, my enemy won't remember why I'm hated. Say, the moon will be veiled. Say, I'm forgiven by their white wings tucked in the forest shadows. Say, their thick stems and broad leaves will hide me. Say, I'm allowed to witness the morning unfolding of their coiled stamens. Say, I don't need to explain my hunger for them. And there's a park that my husband and I love to go to, Tualatin River Wildlife Refuge, and a lot of geese live there. So they pass through there. This was written for the summer. It's called Geese. Their scat scents a field of summer long after they've moved on. Feathers among the moth mullein, old droppings in the brown grass where the tansy blooms. A female rested here. The flock lingered near the pond. Periscope sentinels guarded the perimeter, black heads, black pearl eyes at high alert. The others browsed and fed. A trail was worn to the water. You can almost hear them in overflight, calls echoing in the meadows, multiples of a single note that's many, unified. In 6 weeks, they'll return. They weigh so heavy in your memory, it's as if they never left. Once again, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to the Ships at Sea. And so this is the title of my book, Going Out Together. And this is for fall. Sunlight doesn't reach the ground. The foliage folds around me, and I'm going out to gather. There are animals and birds here, the tiny flowers of bindweed and wild radish, cones the size of my fingertip. I'm walking out in all of this. I am going out alone. I pull my coat close. It's dry, but the evergreens remember rain. Maples are green, going gold, gold going red, red burning to rust. Moss and lichen revise bark and limb. A crow cruises and watches as I watch her. She drops a feather. My fingers curl over my pocketed key. I'm going out to gather. I'm walking out in all of this. Small animals crush quietly the leaves and twigs and dark underbrush. A breeze hushes the tops of the trees. Sedge flows with the wind. In a clearing is a swath of unfamiliar light. The ground is ash, charcoal splinters. Trees and launches of skeletal berry vines are charred ghosts. Someone has been here before me. The air is acrid with smoke, memory. I release a breath. Nothing will be kept but the crow feather, the cone, the moss. I am going out to gather. I'm walking out alone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caroline and Trina. Wasn't that wonderful? That's great. So we have books on the table back there. Most of them are for sale. One of them is for free. We also have some handouts from the festival back there. We have some cookies. We need to eat the cookies because otherwise I eat the cookies. I've been told it's bad for me to eat all the leftover cookies. And then we have two lists back there. One's for the open mic and one's for the mailing list. So whichever one you want, or both, whichever. And we'll come back after a couple minutes for the open mic.